groovy.
But also been, frankly, kind of terrified to do The Shining.
Yeah.
It's not an easy movie to translate into what we do. Again, especially when you think about everything we do is got to be a new show every 10 seconds. What do you hope our fans will feel when they go through our mix?
Well, it's like what you were talking about, The Shining at the beginning. In my mind, it's like, and it's very hard to do this within a 5-minute walk to attraction, but a sense of dread. It's trying to get some suspense. Because that's what that movie, when you watch it, is about. But it's a big, slow burn. And it really is. But that's, in my mind, what we're trying to pull through this maze and help you feel that.
And I think that's really a difference in horror movies that were made in the 70s. The Shining, of course, was 1980s, so it's right in line with those films. As Chris referenced, it's a slow burn. I know plenty of people who couldn't even probably watch The Exorcist and wouldn't get past the Iraq sequence. Actually, I've met many of these people. Where I've like something ask me, what's your scariest movie of all time? I'm like, oh, The Exorcist. You got to watch it, and then they can't get past the first 20 minutes. Halloween's the same way, by the way. Halloween, nothing really happens in the last 15 minutes of the movie. So it's a challenging thing to instill that sense of dread of what's coming when you're creating a live experience. I watch the movie together, we take copious notes, neither of us talk, it's really awkward. We're sitting in my office just going,
It's true.
we're the least fun people to watch horror movies with. We're awful, we just sit there and you're right on the notes. But then we kind of, up on the big board in my office, we wrote a list. Do you remember this? And we wrote a list of must-haves. From a scenic perspective, there's something I didn't hear you mention. Go ahead and click the next one. These are all things you said: the Grady's Lanes, the red front door, elevator of blood. Here's Johnny, the hedge maze, the carpet. The carpet's actually really incredibly important, particularly scenically, because as Chris and I were sitting there writing all our notes, and this is something we don't normally do in movies. We don't normally think about carpet. But you look at the scenic, and what do you have? You have stark white hallways, brown 1970s looking doors. Without the carpet, it's not the overlook.
Yeah. Look at the camera angle too that he had. It's really low. He's really keen on the carpet. We felt that was super important and almost a character within itself, actually.
So, normally we don't think about what's below your feet. Because typically when people are going through a maze, their POV is like here. Some usually up, some usually down. It's always, where's the next scare coming from? Where's the next scare coming from? So we knew that it was really important that we had to reproduce this carpet. This is the bathroom. Hasn't started props yet, but...
Yeah, it's just a small little sliver of what's to come, guys. You can tell we're really working incredibly hard to make this look exactly like the film.
And of course, you will see of course. Another challenging thing is just to create the architecture of the overlook. This is a still from the movie where Jack's cruising through the lobby. I took one picture of some of the columns that Chris has got going in the maze. Next slide.
Yeah, you can tell. And you know what? We're not going to click back, but looking at that other image, it's so big and broad and expansive. It's really hard for us to pull that off within the maze, but you can see we're making big, bold columns, as well as, the black and white photos from the 1920s even. But, we're really trying to get the coloration, that terracotta color, even at the very top with the Native American graphic band that we have throughout and wrapping around. So, we're pulling it off. You guys are going to be happy with it.
Okay, next slide. And then, of course, here's Johnny. When you think about it, that's a really difficult scene to be live in front of people. It's a guy chopping down a door that then has to, stick his face in the door for the classic "Here's Johnny" line. Has to reach through the door and try to get to the lock. Wendy has to slash him with a knife. So we knew we wanted to get all that action into the scene and compress it down so that they could do it. And of course, with pre-recorded audio, that means our performers are going to have to be really good at miming to the audio. so that it's all done to track. But we started doing this a couple of years ago when we did the Halloween maze, where we had Dr. Loomis shooting Michael Myers, and those performers were amazing. Like every single time I went in that room, you know, they were perfectly on cue. Michael, bang, 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 and they would react to it perfectly. So now we have to train our performers to do the same thing with The Shining, but it still didn't solve the problem of how do you deal with this axe?
The concept is, you can see on the right side, it's just a simple pivot, and it's an axe on a simple pivot that has a gusset that's coming off the back of the door itself. And the performer, John had said, to the sound of the chopping, will just move this puppet forward. We have certain stops on it that he can only go so far forward, and it's a soft foam axe head. There's really 4 things that's got to happen. He's got to chop, got to put his head up through the door, then he's got to reach down through, and then when he's going to hit his hand. So it's in a bathroom. There's probably 10 to 12 steps before you're out of the room, so that has got to happen all really quick and everything. Yeah.
And Chris mentioned this earlier, but we did the math on this years ago. If you're a performer in the scene, if you're playing Jack Torrance, you're going to do this 60,000 times. That's about the average of how many times a performer in Hornex will do whatever we block for them to do. So it's all about repetitive action that they can do over and over and over again. Chris and I don't always do. If there's a creature, if there's somebody that's supposed to be, you know, getting happy by La Llorona or whatever the creature is, the alien, the thing, we'll put ourselves on the table, we'll crawl in.
John will do that. He'll put on every single mask.
And sometimes before.
Yeah, and it's so that, you know what, honestly, it's so that he and we have an understanding of really what our performers are kind of getting into with, you know, a certain mask, if it's small, if it's larger, or really, or you guys know we do a lot of magic illusion gags, you know, so we put performers within tables and really, you know, precarious situations. So we want to know what they're getting into as well.
I think I'm banned from performing in our mazes now after Halloween because I just really wanted to be Michael Myers one night. Who wouldn't, you know? And it was the year we did that. Remember that scene with the mirrors where there were like multiple Michael Myers? So I did it for like an hour. But I figured out in that scene that if you jumped out a certain way, you could get people going circles. The whole audience crawling like in a circle. Please come, how do we get out of here? You know? And somebody came up and tapped on the shoulder like, you gotta stop. So they had to be in our basis. We had a concept, actually Chris's idea to how to do the Grady twins using Pepper's ghost illusion. But even though you have a concept, and even though we've done Pepper's Ghost a bunch, did it in Crimson Peak, done it in a bunch of different mazes, it doesn't mean it's going to work the way that you think it is, because it's all very specific to the math and the angle of the glass to get that illusion, that ghostly figure to look like it's actually in the space you want it to look like. So we built a full-size model of this in our warehouse.
Yeah, we did. We did a little R&D, and like the question is, you know, essentially we learn from our mistakes. Actually, we don't want to repeat those kind of things. Sometimes we do, but we learn and we fix those. A lot of those are based on characters and how they're performing, you know, as well as some scenic things. And here's this one of a Pepper's Ghost. So, you know, and the way that we wanted the Pepper's Ghost is obviously we want you to see the girls, but then we want you to see them disappear and then the whole bloody scene. And that's what we're really trying to pull off. And that's how we felt that it was so important to do. Really, we built a full scale, and the drawing, that's a Troy Zimmerman drawing, in our warehouse, and we were wrong.